Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, despite what some people may say, authors today are often trapped within the tropes of their genre. We like to think, well, you are the storyteller, it's your story, so tell it as you would want to, but it's not really true. Whether it be the biggest, most popular stories, or the ones that never catch on at all, I think that we care too much, and our interests are too limited to give people complete freedom. It's your story, sure. Write it as you would like, I guess. But that doesn't mean I'm going to like it or continue to watch it. The truth is, guys, successful stories are told again and again in every way imaginable. Today, almost no story is completely new and original. Authors explore the same plots and the same themes in the same ways time and again, with nuanced differences and a different backdrop. If you want to pop off and be a commercial success, it is best to, and in fact probably necessary to, learn from the great stories of yesteryear and why they became popular, why people love them, why they elicit the emotional effect that they did. What do people actually like? Discover that and you'll probably discover the recipe for success yourself. And this isn't only true for storytelling. Another but different example, look at music. The formula is developed and then it's copied again and again and again. But even at a DNA level, certain sounds just work together. As they say with the 4 chords, all you really need to play the vast majority of the #1 hit singles over the last, 40 years, maybe more. What makes a sound good? Some of it is just inherent to all people. Story tropes are just the same. Some stories just intrinsically work. Eiichiro Oda lives in the world of shonen battle manga. He's been a part of it for nearly 25 years or so, and 20 of those within the same One Piece universe. He has created a legend, the best-selling manga of all time. If anybody knows the tropes and what people like, Oda does. For 20 years he's nailed it, while still finding the nuance necessary for it to feel fresh and new. But at the end of the day, it's a battle manga. The audience is looking for fights, and they want to see the heroes topple the titans in their path. Every arc of One Piece, it is essentially, ignoring all the details, it is essentially the same at its core, whether it be Alvida or Arlong, Crocodile, Doflamingo, or Kaido. The heroes will fight and defeat them. We like this story a lot, as our ancestors before us. But I'm not trying to say this in any sort of condescending, in any sort of, hipster way where I only like things that other people don't like. No, I'm part of the crowd here. We all like these certain tropes, these certain things for a reason. And some things we don't like, we don't enjoy, again, for a reason. But I think that it's fair to ask this question. Do you think that this would ever eventually get old? How many times do you think an author can tell the same story before they themselves lose interest? To what lengths must Oda go to continue to find the nuance, the newness, for himself? Now, I'm not anywhere near on Oda's level regarding anything, but I can say this, as a content creator, I can say it is as important for you to enjoy my videos as it is important for me to enjoy my videos, because once you take that pride away, I think that you take away a lot of the heart and the substance of what makes something great. I think that repeating something too often can be very boring. And as of lately, I feel like this is applicable to One Piece and to Oda. Currently, I feel Oda is having a great time, battling the casual reader or the readers in general in order to make a point first, but also to further expand what is possible with shonen battle manga and with One Piece itself. As of lately, Oda has been incredibly creative. Not that he wasn't before, but it feels like in more risky and dangerous ways. As you guys probably already know, Whole Cake Island was a pretty contentious arc, and specifically Sanji's role within that arc has been criticized. Do you guys remember the year of Sanji? That was something that Oda's editor said, and to hype up Sanji and Whole Cake Island, this was going to be the year of Sanji. I think everybody heard this and thought one thing. Sanji is going to get a massive fight. Think of his fight versus Jabra in Eni's lobby. There's going to be a Sanji battle feat incoming. He's going to get his climactic 1-versus-1 fight. Every story begins with a promise, which is of course the hook. We continue reading, looking for the payoff to this promise. At the very beginning of Whole Cake Island, in this case, this was Sanji getting revenge against his family. They mistreated him, they disrespected him, they abandoned him, and we of course knew what was going to happen. And of course I believe Oda knew what we thought would happen as well. Sanji was going to prove his strength by defeating them in a climactic battle, defeating them in combat. This is the trope, man. This is what we all come back for time and again. It's shown in Battle Manga 101. You almost can't go wrong. But it never happened. It never happened. At least not in the way that we anticipated. You know, in retrospect, for Oda, it doesn't seem like it was ever the most important thing for Sanji to prove that he was strong in battle. It was actually to validate and explore Sanji as a person. You know, what would inspire someone to become a cook? In Oda's case, or what Oda decided, kindness. Sanji doesn't want people to go hungry and suffer. When people eat good food, they are happy, and Sanji lives to please other people in this way. So Oda took this and set out to prove that being kind wasn't a weakness. For Sanji to get revenge, Sanji challenged the Vinsmoke's most central ideology. The strong survive, and the weak die. To be strong, one must separate themselves from emotion. Those with emotion are weak. The kind, therefore, are weak. Judge Vinsmoke was consumed by this idea to the point that he intentionally stripped all of his children of emotion. He wanted to make them strong, because that's how he defined strength. But of course, Sanji didn't get this, and for that, Sanji was a failure and was treated as such. This, of course, was in addition to his physical limitations as a child. So on Whole Cake Island, despite having the opportunity to abandon his family just as they did to him, and let them die, again as they would for him, Sanji refused. He couldn't do that. It wasn't right. In the end, as Reiju suggests, Sanji is too kind. The weak die and the strong survive, right? But what if the strong are saved by weakness? In my opinion, that is the conflict Oda depicted as Sanji loomed over his family on the table at the tea party. To be saved by weakness is to question the very nature of strength. To see the weak survive as the strong die, again, does the very same. For me, Sanji didn't need a dramatic 1-versus-1 fight for this moment to be powerful. However, for Sanji to win using what the Vinsmoke perceived as weakness, including later using cooking to win, in many ways counteracted the idea of Sanji winning via brute strength. The whole time we just didn't understand the nature of the battle, and how it was possible for Sanji to win. Sanji doesn't win when his family, when the Vinsmokes die. Sanji wins when he proves to them that kindness is not a weakness. You can have both. And we may end up touching on this later, but I just want to throw this out here, guys. The Vinsmokes, their role in the story is not complete. We will see them again. They will appear somewhere else. And I think the main thing that we should take away from what we've already gotten about the Vinsmokes, regardless of whether they become an enemy in the future, that's debatable, is why was Judge so consumed with removing emotion from his children? Did the Vinsmokes at some point in the past make a mistake, or did Judge believe they made a mistake because of emotion? Without a doubt, guys, I think that you should believe that the Vinsmokes have an actual reason for disliking, compassion, empathy, and fear. There is an actual reason for their beliefs. And I personally believe that this has something to do with how exactly the Vinsmokes were defeated. Their empire was defeated in the North Blue hundreds of years in the past. Guys, I just think that this is where Oda has been going the entire time, but it's difficult to know this before we have actually gotten there. You know, where does Sanji's strength comes from? And in many cases, it comes from his compassion and his empathy and his love. His Diable Jambe, for instance, he only ever used it, and when he initially acquired the skill, it was out of fear for losing his friends. A power derived from compassion and love. When Oda was asked why Sanji's Diable Jambe does not burn him in an SBS, Oda claimed that while Sanji's flames burn hot, his heart burns hotter. Oda is known for making jokes. He's also known for very subtle foreshadowing. The abilities that the Vinsmokes have achieved via technology, Sanji achieved without it. It almost begs the question of, were the Vinsmoke's abilities, like for instance making electric kicks, based on an actual ability that the lineage had in the past that was lost? The Vinsmokes of the past were powerful, in large part due to emotion, positive emotions, compassion, empathy, and love. But despite their strength, Judge surmised that it was because of this emotion that they inevitably lost. Again here, this could be the plot that Oda is developing that we are not yet completely aware of. Only Sanji can return the Vinsmoke and Germa 66 to their former glory. But I want you guys to understand, Oda meticulously avoided giving the reader what we thought that we wanted, and in some cases what we still would have preferred. Again, the year of Sanji. Sanji is going to get that significant climactic fight. Nope. And that's interesting to me. Oda is saying something here, without spelling it out. For some reason, he didn't want, or didn't think, Sanji defeating his family in battle would be enough to change their ideology. And that was his goal because, as it turns out, he wanted to make the Vinsmokes into a future ally. So he has to change who they are. And when you think of it like this, Sanji's fight with Judge and the Vinsmoke children holds different significance. Oda purposefully made the fight secondary to other things going on. Still important, it still accomplishes some things, but it was never meant to be the payoff of this arc. When Sanji fights Yonji off screen, later Judge, and then all of his three brothers, I think Sanji makes it apparent that he is physically strong, probably as strong and perhaps stronger than his family, even without a raid suit, even without a technology to help boost his power. I mean, Judge and Ichiji had to play dirty to win. Reiju even comments about Sanji's strength. It's impossible not to notice. You literally have to be deluded not to recognize that Sanji is a powerful fighter. Yet even after proving this, the rest of the family still don't respect him. Why? His emotions. He is still weak, even while physically strong. I think that we all expected and we wanted Sanji to prove his fighting prowess to his family by just completely and utterly crushing them, but in actuality, early in the arc, he had already done so, at least to a level that was satisfactory, and it didn't really matter. In his fight versus Judge, how did Judge win? Judge used one of the Germa clones as a meat shield, stopping Sanji's attack, which probably would have hurt Judge, and it was through that Judge was able to win. In this case, Judge believed, despite Sanji's strength, that he defeated Sanji because Sanji was weak. And he had emotions. He was too kind. He lost because of kindness. And again, only a few chapters later, Sanji wants to fight Niji because of the woman that he hurt. But when Ichiji came up behind him and whispered in his ears the consequences that his actions could have against Zeph, Sanji stopped fighting and again was defeated, and in his brother's eyes, he was defeated because of his kindness. Kindness equals weakness. Emotions equals weakness. He should have left Zeph to his own fate. But that's not Sanji, and that's not right, and Sanji needed to prove that. So yeah, guys, this was still definitely the year of Sanji, and Sanji still got his climactic fight, technically. But it was mostly ideologically. The Vinsmokes never respected his cooking, and the kindness of spirit, which smiles every time he sets a plate before a hungry guest. Weakness, they called it. Useless, they called it. Well, that cooking saved lives. The lives of the Straw Hats themselves, and the lives of many of their enemies. I want you to understand, Big Mom would have destroyed the Straw Hats, and then all of Totland, innocent and guilty alike. Sanji was very much the biggest hero on this day, a fact that is likewise not appreciated by the fans as the characters in the story. It's kind of backwards to think like this, but I believe this is kind of Oda's message. Sanji defeated Big Mom, whether it be momentarily with food or not, while also saving her and her country in the process. Oda is validating Sanji's profession in the most direct way that I can possibly imagine. Sanji is proving that what the Vinsmokes deemed to be a weakness was part of what made Sanji strong. As a little bit of a side note, this is such a callback to the arc Sanji first appeared in, the Baratie arc. Remember Gin and Don Krieg, pirates, killers, and starving. Despite the threat that they posed, Sanji had to feed them. It's a thing I feel as though not a lot of people understand about Sanji, and it wasn't until Whole Cake Island that Oda rammed it home. Sanji is too nice for his own good. He endangered himself and everybody on the Baratie because of his ethics and values. Nowadays, I feel like this arc would be eviscerated by some in the community, but what is the point Oda is making? Why is this moment so cool? Because if victory costs your soul, perhaps winning isn't worth it. In real life, war would be easier if we could use biological warfare, but we don't because it's not humane. Torturing someone is the quickest way to get them to reveal their secrets, but it's not right. Do unto others as they say. For Sanji, seeing a person starving, that's not the right way to win. When people are hungry, they deserve to be fed, whoever they are and whatever they might do afterwards. Sanji knows that suffering and will not subject anybody, not even his worst enemy, to the same given the choice. So Sanji feeds Don Krieg just as he feeds Big Mom. And then going back to my speculation about the history of the Vinsmokes and how their empire was defeated and perhaps their nature in the past. In both arcs in which Sanji is a focal point, a prominent theme is that if victory costs your soul, perhaps winning isn't worth it. And the Vinsmokes of the past lost. Perhaps winning wasn't worth it. What they needed to do in order to win cost too much. So in a way, they allowed themselves to be defeated. And this is again interesting to me because back in the Baratie arc, what do you see? Sanji, after he realizes Zeph's life is in danger, Gin is holding a gun to his head, Sanji stops fighting. He then proceeds to get pummeled almost senseless. To Sanji, winning wasn't worth it. But then how exactly is Zeph saved? Kindness. Sanji's kindness towards Gin turned Gin to the other team. Sanji's kindness created an ally. That is, I believe, Oda's message. And this may sound familiar to you because in Whole Cake Island, Zeph's life was again in danger. And yet again, rather than fighting, Sanji determined winning wasn't worth it. Time and again, he allowed himself to be physically and mentally pummeled. And he didn't fight back. And how exactly did Sanji save Zeph's life? Kindness. He saved the Vinsmoke and they owed a debt to him, which included lifting the threat on Zeph's life. Even looking past Whole Cake Island and into the Wano arc, Sanji has adopted a new persona, Soba Mask. And what is Soba Mask? Soba Mask is a hero. Somebody who, despite not needing to, saved the lives of innocents. Innocents that may not have deserved it. Despite Trafalgar Law's concerns and his advice, Sanji still saved these people because it is in his nature, he is too kind. But at the same time, this is going to prove, in my opinion, to be a very important moment in Wano. And all the while, he is doing this while wearing a Germa 66 raid suit. He is, in fact, whether purposefully or not, changing what it means to be Stealth Black of Germa 66. I believe that Sanji is making allies. And even going back to Whole Cake Island, when Sanji was making the cake for Big Mom and Big Mom's family, he made an ally there too. He made an ally in Pudding. And likely it's through Pudding that Sanji may make an ally out of most of the Big Mom pirates, including Charlotte Katakuri. Maybe even Big Mom herself. He saved them. As somebody said on Twitter, the moral of this story is often that having faith in people and sticking to your principles more often than not turns out in your favor. Perhaps Sanji could have let the Vinsmokes die. Perhaps he could have let Gin die. Perhaps he could have let Big Mom and her entire country die. But in the end, showing kindness and not doing so will turn out in the Straw Hat's favor. And the actual moment in the story that this concept is realized is actually the payoff that we have all been waiting for. We just didn't know. Yet some say that Oda shouldn't have written this kind of central fight, as opposed to Sanji using punches and kicks. The reason for this, guys, is tropes, and being unsure of where this story is going. That is the difference. As you guys know, I always say the problem is with expectation and impatience. I think for most, what I speculated here is actually a very satisfying sub-arc. So where along the chain can people become disappointed? Well, multiple places. When you start off with the expectation that Sanji must defeat his family using force. When Oda first glossed over Sanji's fight with Yonji. when Oda led off with fights against Judge and Niji, but never really came back to them. When instead of fighting, Sanji's internal struggle was emphasized instead. His struggle with the fact that he can't protect everyone he loves by himself. And likely no matter way he turns, he's a burden to somebody. And then again, the pinnacle for what Oda saw for Sanji and Whole Cake Island was that he would bake a cake. And then the determination that this was all Oda had in store for the story, and it was over. You could actually like the end of this, but hate every single link in this chain, potentially. Because Oda decided to subvert our expectations and do something different and new in his story that we don't commonly see in the genre. And what payoff there is that would likely appeal to most people is definitely not instant. In my opinion, guys, you just don't know yet that you will like it. And this is actually a well-documented common psychological phenomenon. It's called the mere exposure effect, also called the familiarity principle or cognitive ease. People tend to develop a preference for things merely because they are familiar with them. Creativity can actually be seen as a negative, even when it's not. As soon as you recognize something as familiar to you, and we're assuming here that this is something that you like, you will probably like this new thing before you even finish it. And as soon as you realize that it is different, the effect is lost. You see this again a lot in music. If you've ever experienced the feeling of enjoying a song substantially more after several listens rather than your first experience with the song. Simultaneously, the same thing is related to the effect of growing to dislike a song after listening to it too much. The same applies to stories. Some native stories are better once you fully understand them. Your enjoyment of them improves with subsequent readings. I tend to think that this is an effect One Piece often gives me. But simultaneously, when something is too familiar, or in a way you've heard it too much, you don't get the same level of payoff as you had before. It is not new enough. I highly suggest that you read up on these effects to perhaps better understand them. But it's because of this why you can kind of enjoy something but find it a little bit underwhelming because it is too similar to something that you have seen before, but at the same time not appreciate something that is wildly different than anything that you have ever enjoyed. Or you don't recognize it for something that you would enjoy. But it's something that you would like if you became familiar with it, if you understood it. And this alone, we have a reason why Oda would want to be creative and deceptive, and why some people wouldn't like it. Sanji baking a cake is lame, right? Well, yeah, it could be, and it's your right to feel this way if you do. Yet for some, even if it wasn't the payoff they wanted, it could have been, and you aren't even giving it the chance. The same way I feel every time a song I grew to love through several listens never makes it on the radio. People have already dismissed it because it wasn't familiar. But going back to Sanji, all of this reminds me of Odin, actually. In what ways did that story play out different to how you thought it would? The battle between Odin and Kaido is kind of an afterthought compared to his death. Kaido is stronger, right? Well, no, Odin was going to win before being deceived himself. Oda went out of his way to make you question Odin. Why wasn't he fighting? Why was he letting Orochi have his way when it's clear the only way out is to fight? In the flashback, the rabbling citizens are us, the fans, in many cases. We called him a fool of a lord. No, just like Sanji, Odin has ethics and principles he will not break. When people can be saved, he saves them, however that may be possible and at any cost to himself. Perhaps similar to Sanji, he couldn't live with himself, doing it any other way. In my opinion, guys, this is perfect storytelling. Oda doesn't explain too much. And he doesn't explain it right away. He gives you a moment to be confused or to be angry, and he's not afraid to give the readers something other than what he knows we want, with the intention of giving us something we never even knew we wanted. This is how you create a great and new emotional experience, and an accompanying moral worth considering. Just like Sanji, Odin could have simply won by defeating his enemies without giving them the chance to gather strength. Yet he didn't, perhaps because there is a cost that Odin was not willing to pay in order to win. Winning wasn't worth it. And a common theme of One Piece in general, even if you fail, your dreams will not die, and your will get carried to the next generation. It's okay to lose. That is the inherited will, and that is why the D smile before they die. But yeah, for Oda, this isn't a science, it's an art. He treats it that way, and it's in that way I appreciate it most. Appreciate that a man that has been doing the same thing essentially every week for over 20 years still has that spark of creativity and inspiration, who is still giving it his all and isn't afraid to tell the story his way. Unfortunately, entertainment as a whole is no longer trending in this direction. If people aren't sure whether it will work, in many cases it's never made. In my opinion, audiences today are really fickle, myself included. There is so much entertainment and so much media out there to consume that it's very easy to just turn something off and pick up something new if it doesn't immediately grab your attention. If you don't immediately understand that this is something that you will like. With all the manga following in Oda's footsteps, I doubt we will be so lucky again, and we will all get to enjoy our copy pasta manga and anime that is afraid to break outside of the genre standards. I am not saying that Eiichiro Oda is perfect and that he is without flaws, and the same for One Piece. But I do think that you should allow him to be creative and deceptive, in surprising and unfamiliar ways. Because it is through this process that I believe One Piece can be the most rewarding. But yeah guys, that is pretty much all I had to say today. As always, I am curious as to what you guys think. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.